Welcome into the show where we cover all things Bulldogs. I'm John Rawl, and this is Citadel Gray Line, and we've got one heck of a way to get this week's show started. We're going to be talking today, of course, about Bulldog football. We'll talk about Citadel wrestling even. Jeff Hartsell standing by of the Charleston Post and Courier. But the Citadel basketball team goes to Pitt and walks out of Pittsburgh 78-63 victors. What an incredible way to start the 2021 basketball season for Duggar Baucom's basketball team. We're going to talk about that big win. We've got some clips from the excitement there from the Three Rivers City. And we'll also have a very special guest coming up later in the program. If you haven't been on the Citadel campus in the last couple of years, you may not be familiar with the War Memorial that was erected between the chapel and Mark Clark Hall. Well, we're going to have a very special guest from the Citadel Class of 1967. Jay Keenan is going to be dropping by later in the show to talk about his class's effort to put up that incredible memorial, as this week we honor our veterans as Veterans Day week is here, and the hundreds of Citadel alumni that have fallen in America's battles are honored right there on campus. And again, we'll go to Charleston and be joined by Jay Keenan, and that interview is coming up later. But let's bring on the guy that knows all about Citadel football, basketball, and so much more. He is Jeff Hartsell of the Charleston Post and Courier. Jeff, how about those basketball dogs?
Well, I tell you, I'm a little groggy this morning because I was up late writing about Citadel basketball. Not quite what I expected. Although coming home from dinner, I did tell my wife that Pitt was a bit of a mess and maybe the Citadel had a chance. And it turned out to be more than a chance. They dominated that game from the get-go against an ACC foe. Their first win against an ACC team since 1979, snapping a skid of 0-46 against ACC squads. So what an exciting debut for Duggar Baucom's seventh team here at the Citadel. And I hope it bodes well for the season, and I think it does.
We're going to talk about that game. We're going to do so much here. We want y'all to be involved with us here at the Citadel Gray Line. We've got a couple of ways for you to get involved. We've got a call-in number. If you've got something you want to call or text us about, we welcome that at 843-779-8496. And, hey, let those great comments about Duggar Baucom's club come in. We've been very critical, I have specifically, on Citadel basketball over the last couple of years. This is a great moment for Citadel basketball, and hopefully this is going to lead to a whole bunch of great moments. There's another ACC school scheduled in about 10 days for this basketball team. How about a win at Cameron Indoor? Hey, why not? Why not? So we'll talk about basketball with Jeff Hartsell. Also going to talk about that tough road loss for the football team at Sanford this weekend, and the losses continue to mount up for Brent Thompson's football team. But back to basketball, Jeff, and I'm going to have you keep talking about this big win, and we're going to roll some highlights courtesy of the ACC Digital Network.
Yeah, well, Hayden Brown, the guy we've come to expect over the years watching his career. The TV announcers described him as a grown man, and he certainly was against Pitt's front court, 19 points and I think 7 rebounds. But the real revelation was this 6'5" freshman, Jason Roche. Wow, what a college debut.
11.
8 of 14 from three-point range, 27 points in his first college game against an ACC team. That's incredible. And the big question going into this season was, how would the Citadel replace the scoring of Caden Rice and Fletcher Abey, who both transferred elsewhere? And I think we found one of the answers last night. If this kid can replicate that in any fashion for the rest of the season, I think he's going to be a rising star in the Southern Conference. What a debut. And then Tyler Moff, the point guard, did his usual solid job running the team. Stephen Clark has put on some weight. The skinny 6'9" He's a junior now, hard to believe. And Duggar Baucom said he was their best player in preseason work. So the makings of a solid core there for maybe a little bit of a surprise team in the SoCon.
Yeah, and again, some surprise figures. You talk about some of these players. I believe it was it Clark that had actually quit the team but stayed in the Corps of Cadets and then has come back to the basketball program?
I don't know that story. I don't know that that's true. I think
Okay.
he's been a solid member of the team throughout. He's one of Duggar Baucom's favorites.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, I don't know anything about that.
There was one player I know that had not left school but kind of had quit playing basketball and
Yeah,
has come
he
back.
was a walk-on that's not on the team anymore. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Hey, there's so many people and so many point makers for this team. We know that the SoCon preseason player of the year, Hayden Brown, is a member of this team. And, boy, he had a great night. But you see number 11 on your screen there, the Berkeley, California sharpshooter. Wow. 27 points, I believe, was the total.
It was 8 of 14 from three-point range, and he actually played a year of prep school basketball, I think in Connecticut, before coming to the Citadel. And wow, what a recruiting get for the Duggar Baucom. There's probably about 300 coaches across the country wondering why they didn't recruit him.
Yeah.
Right now. So after that debut, so look forward to watching his growth over the season and over his Citadel career and finding out more about him.
And you saw that clip there of post-game reaction, and that was Jeff Capel, the great ACC basketball player of yesteryear, now coaching the Panthers, and he goes down in flames to Duggar.
Yeah, a fortuitous bit of scheduling there for the Citadel. Pitt was picked 14th in the ACC, so they were not going to be a great team this year anyway. Then over the past week, they lost their starting guard to a knee injury, and another top player was arrested for apparently punching a police officer and is suspended. So the Citadel definitely caught Pitt at the right time, but that does not take away from the accomplishment of the Bulldogs. They come home with $90,000 and a win over an ACC team to start the season, and you couldn't ask for much more than that.
No, you couldn't. Did you have a chance to interview Duggar Baucom after this game?
We did. We had a Zoom call with Duggar after the game, and he was proud of his guys, as you might guess. They sent out for some milkshakes from a local fudge shop to celebrate. And Duggar said he had about 58 texts on his phone immediately after the buzzer. So a lot of people are happy for Duggar Baucom, and he's a great guy and deserving of a moment like this. Of course, when he was at VMI, he took one of his teams to Rupp Arena to open the season and did beat Kentucky at Rupp Arena. So he's done this before, but that was his first win over an ACC team as a coach.
Do you know where the fudge outing was? Was that in Pittsburgh, or did they wait to get back to Charleston to do that?
No, in Pittsburgh. I think they're flying home today.
Oh, okay.
Duggar Zoomed a call with us from his hotel room last night after the game. So they sent the managers and the bus driver out to hunt down some milkshakes because that's their traditional road victory celebration.
Yes. And
now it's a second homecoming weekend this week, right, John?
Yes, for football. Mm-hmm.
Right, and so this basketball team is at home at noon on Friday against Morse College. If there's no excuse for alums or whoever's on campus this weekend for homecoming to stop by McAllister and get a look at the kids who knocked off Pitt.
For Pitt's sake, go see Duggar Baucom and the basketball team. Again, as Jeff mentioned, this was the first win since 1979 over a Clemson team. Oddly enough, I look back at the schedule. That was back when you might play a non-conference team twice in a season, and the Citadel had lost to Clemson back in December, but in early January of 79, they beat Clemson at McAllister Fieldhouse. This was the first win over a Power 5, so-called Power 5 team since 1989. And I remember that night. I was a senior in high school listening to the radio in Columbia, and the Citadel Bulldogs with Patrick Elmore, Ryan Nesbitt, and Ted Mose and others went in and beat the Gamecocks in Columbia in 1989. That was the last time they had actually beat a Power 5 team, and that brought back a great memory after they downed Pitt this week on opening night of college basketball.
And listen to this. The ACC is 0-2 against military schools so far this season because Navy knocked off number 25 Virginia last night. So how about that military school basketball?
How about it? And the SoCon looked pretty good for most of the game. Mercer led Arkansas, but unfortunately the Bears kind of fell apart there at the end in Fayetteville. But a SoCon pretty good performance, and especially when you got the Citadel leading the way. Congratulations. Again, it's Morris College coming up on Friday at high noon. And then if you're in the upstate or you're in the Midlands, make your way to Lawrence County, right where Interstate 26 and whatever they call that thing that goes up toward Greenville, I guess it's 385, because on Monday evening at Presbyterian College, Duggar Baucom's team will go up to Clinton, South Carolina, for a game against the Blue Hose. So, hey, let's turn Clinton Citadel blue for that one.
And Presbyterian led Clemson at the half last night and battled the Tigers hard in the second half before losing. So that will not be an easy game, even coming off upset victory like they had against Pitt.
That's right. And then as I kind of alluded to, coming up on November 22nd, that's a Monday night, the Citadel will be at Cameron Indoor taking on the Duke Blue Devils, also out of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And, hey, the Dogs are 1-0 against that conference, so it can be done. We're looking forward to it and glad to cover Citadel basketball along the way. We're going to move over to a quick wrestling video. Anything else basketball related that we're going to get out of you, Jeff?
I don't think so. I think we covered the bases. They play Morris at noon on Friday as part of homecoming weekend. And then you mentioned the upcoming games with PC and Duke. From what I saw of Duke last night against Kentucky, they'll be a little bit tougher foe than Pitt was.
And I don't even know who won. I was so elated with Citadel basketball, I have no idea who won between Duke and Kentucky.
Duke won that game against Kentucky,
really?
And they are very impressive. Got some big, talented freshmen for Coach K's final season. So I think Duke will be in the Final Four, Elite Eight picture at the end of the season.
All right. Hey, let me tell everybody about our great co-sponsor of the Citadel Gray Line, and we're always looking for sponsors, so feel free to reach out to us here at 843-779-8496. One of our great sponsors is IPS Packaging and Automation out of Fountain Inn, South Carolina. They're a name that y'all can certainly trust. IPS Packaging and Automation has been providing manufacturers and e-commerce companies with the very best in packaging products and automation in the entire industry. They offer a complete line of products, stretch films, 3M tapes, corrugated boxes, strapping, equipment automation, and more. IPS Packaging and Automation will analyze and streamline your current methods to improve your packaging process. Give them a call. Derek Murdoch, class of 1997, 800-277-7007. How you can learn more about what they've got, go to their website, ipack.com. That's ipack.com. IPS Packaging and Automation is a proud supporter of Citadel Athletics. Our other great sponsor of this show is BigRedPalmetto.store with hundreds of great items. They have some of the brand new logos available for you to add to their great lineup of products. BigRedPalmetto.store brings you each week Knob Knowledge. And since we're going to have in just a few minutes Jay Keenan stop by from the class of 67, talk about the Citadel War Memorial that's been erected on the Citadel campus, put up by the class of 1967. I thought as a way, since we honor our veterans and the solemn sacrifice of hundreds of Citadel alumni throughout America's wars, it would be very fitting here to bridge alumni and their deaths with Citadel Athletics here with our Knob Knowledge question. So our Knob Knowledge question is, years ago, I don't know the exact year, a statue was unveiled just outside of the end zone at Johnson-Hagan Stadium that depicts two Citadel football players in a moment of jubilation. And those two Citadel football players would both go on to be killed fighting in Vietnam, and their names are on the Citadel War Memorial on campus. Could you please tell us who those two Citadel football greats and Citadel alumni are, both of which died fighting in Vietnam? If you could tell me their names, last names only would be acceptable, we'll get you a $25 gift certificate to Big Red Palmetto store. So just fire away with those two names and you'll get it, and hopefully we'll get an answer before we welcome in again Jay Keenan, class of 67 here in just a few moments. Jeff, let's talk a little wrestling. I've got a video to play. What's going on with Bulldog Wrestling right now?
Well, they just opened their season under second-year coach Ryan LeBlanc, and they had a SoCon champion last season at the heavyweight division, Michael McElvey. I think you pronounce his last name, and he was recognized at a recent football game on the field. And I think Ryan is doing a good job in building back Citadel wrestling, which of course has a long and proud tradition at the Citadel. You know, college wrestling is a sport that's encountered rough times in recent years with schools dropping programs, and I think it's great that the Citadel has stuck by their wrestling program. It would be real easy to save money in that way by dropping a sport, but they haven't done that, and they've invested in a new coach. He came over from App State, which has a solid program, and I think he's doing a good job.
All right, well, the athletic department at the Citadel has just come out with a really neat little video that caught my attention, and I think it'll catch your eye too. A little high-octane fun on the mat, and let's go into McAllister Fieldhouse to see a little bit of what the wrestling team did as they started their new season. Jeff Hartsell, that looks a little painful.
Wow. Gee whiz, that looked rough. Those guys are aggressive, and of course, nobody works harder than in college sports than wrestlers. To put in the hours they do in that wrestling room, putting out the sweat and pain and blood and tears that those guys put out, pretty impressive.
Jeff, in my time there on Moultrie Street, some of my great friends and classmates were wrestlers, and I'm asking you this question because I'm not familiar with it that important in other sports, but those guys would have to always either be running or eating, trying to keep their weight exactly where it should be, and sometimes they would have to lose pounds in just one day. Is that also a big deal for, let's say, basketball, football, cross country? What's the story on that?
Well, each sport has its own dietary ideal, I guess. But no, cutting weight, that's definitely a thing in wrestling. And I think the idea is you want to be right at the top of your weight class. So if you're in the 189-pound weight class, you want to be right at the top of that weight class in your and weight to be as strong as possible. So yeah, cutting weight, adding weight, definitely a thing that that wrestlers have to deal with,
All right.
and it
Well,
can be dangerous. It can be dangerous if you're not doing it the right way, for sure.
yeah, like I said, those guys, like you've already kind of set it up. They have a rough go of it as a college athlete, being a college wrestler, and uh, I don't envy them at all. I'm glad they were able to have their great career. Let me pull up the wrestling team's upcoming match that they've got. Let's see, their next event is today against Queens, and then this weekend. No, I'm sorry, they will be. Let's see here at Presbyterian in Somerville. They're having a match in Somerville at John McKissick Field. Is it possible to have a wrestling match outdoors?
Sure, that's Somerville High School's football stadium.
Okay.
So that'll be interesting. And of course, they've held wrestling matches in the you call it the quad
Oh yeah.
inside the barracks. Is that right? They've
Uh
done
huh.
that before as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this weekend at 2 o'clock on Saturday, Presbyterian is the opponent in Somerville at John McKissick Field, and then the following Saturday, the Citadel wrestling team will be at the Navy Classic in Annapolis, and hopefully they'll come back with a nice victory over the Middies. All right, Jeff, we're doing what we probably should be doing, stalling here to avoid talking about Citadel football. The news not good, the injury news not good, and one of the great players that the Citadel's had in recent times, his playing career now officially over.
The All-American linebacker Willie Eubanks III announced last week that he has had knee surgery and is going to be focusing on his dreams of a pro career. And Willie was one of the great linebackers in Citadel history, which dates back to Brian Ruff and in the 70s and beyond. SoCon Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. His last two seasons been hampered by injury, which has not helped the Bulldogs' cause at all. But Willie's a great kid and a great player, and we'll see if he can find his way into at least a shot at the NFL.
And he will be missed. We wish him all the best. And for the kind of treatment that he needs, he gets all that as part of being a Citadel athlete. He gets all his medical care right there in Charleston.
Yes, he will. He will rehab at the Citadel over the next few months, and the hope is to get him into a junior day, tryout day for the NFL, either at the Citadel or at another school, and see if he can get at least a free agent tryout. We've seen things like that work before. D. Delaney was out of the league for a year before getting a free agent shot with the Bucks, and he's made that pay off now as he started games at cornerback for Tom Brady's team.
Even had a couple
of
at least one interception recently.
That's right. And Noah Dawkins, who played linebacker at the Citadel, had been on the Jets practice squad and played in a couple of games this year. But he was just released last week, so we're hoping Noah can catch on with another team.
Noah, catch on. We're going to be pulling for you. And, of course, Andre Roberts now calls the L.A. Chargers home in the NFL. 843-779-8496. That's how you can catch us here. Again, the trivia question, the non-knowledge question, brought to you by BigRedPalmetto.store is still out there. If you could tell us the alums who are part of the statue, who they are depicted on the statue there just outside of the Altman Center as you head onto the Johnson Haygood Stadium surface there, Sansom Field technically these days. If you could tell me who those alums are, both of which were killed in Vietnam, you'll get a $25 gift certificate courtesy of BigRedPalmetto.store. And again, Jay Keenan is going to be coming on in just a second to talk about the war memorial that was placed on the Citadel campus back in 2017. All right, Jeff, this past weekend in Homewood, the area of Birmingham, the Citadel goes back to Sanford, which has been a place of horrors lately. And, Jeff, it was a pretty bad 35-14 loss. The Dogs once again seemed to just kind of step all over themselves, had a fumble that got returned for a long scoop and score, special teams costly as Samford got a punt return for a touchdown. It was not the best of times for the Citadel football team.
No, and they seem to be finding, different ways to, as you said, step on themselves each week. The last couple of weeks, they've had special teams problems on punt returns, gave up a punt return for a touchdown against Samford, and then twice driving into Samford territory. Looks like they might score, and they lose a fumble. One of those was scooped up for a 95-yard fumble return for a touchdown. What a killer that was. And then they gave up a long touchdown run as well. Samford obviously is a team that loves to pass, 400 yards a game passing, but they didn't even need to pass against the Citadel. They ran the ball pretty effectively against a Bulldogs defense that did not have Willie Eubanks or Anthony Britton, their top two tacklers at linebacker. So, the defense did okay, I think, for the most part, except for that long touchdown run they gave up. But a special teams touchdown and a defensive touchdown that you allow, that's a killer. And the Citadel could not come back from that. The good news is somebody has to win this week. Wofford and the Citadel will do battle. Wofford is actually below the Citadel in last place in SoCon standings. So one of these teams has got to win this weekend. I think the team that is still engaged, still feels like they have something to play for, will have an advantage in this game. It's hard to believe that just a few years ago, Wofford and the Citadel met in an FCS playoff game. And of course, there was that Pitt 6 game in Spartanburg that helped decide a SoCon title that season between two contenders. But both teams have really fallen off in the last couple of years.
Yes, they have. It's very, very unfortunate. We have a question in from Gregory on our Facebook page. If you have a question or comment, feel free to weigh in right there on Facebook, or you can also text your question or comments to 843-779-8496. And Jeff, I know you're excited to be answering Greg's question. Is Coach Brent Thompson on the hot seat?
Well, of course he is. I mean, there's
okay.
no question about it. The results have not been good over the last two seasons. It's hard to hold the 2020-2021 fall and spring season against him. Everybody was going through COVID problems, injury problems, and the Citadel made it harder on themselves, as you recall, with their bookstore snafu that resulted in some player suspensions last spring as well. But this year they got their roster back together. I think they expected better results than they have seen. And any coach whose team has lost 19 of their last 23 is on the hot seat. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and again, as I mentioned earlier, I've been just like a lot of people. It's no real bold move to criticize the Citadel basketball team. Look what they did in their opening game, and they could end up having a miraculous season. So yeah, it's easy to sit here and say get rid of the bums, but then you might have a Pitt game, and that might be what happens when Brent Thompson, if given a chance to come back, as I'm sure he will be in 2022. And Jeff, I was at the Samford game. I talked to a lot of people, and I'm understanding that we have a very young offensive line. And to me, that, of course, in an option offense probably is the most critical thing. Probably the most critical thing with any kind of offense is that offensive line. If you don't have a good offensive line, you're going to have a tough time. And I'm understanding we got a young offensive line that's got a lot of experience that can be very beneficial, at least in 2022.
Well, a lot of those guys are already pretty experienced. I'm not sure how true that is. Hayden Haas and Terry Drayton have played a lot of football, but there are some other guys who are younger. Ben Brockington and Cameron Moe and Zach Blanchard, guys like that. Zach Blanchard is a freshman, I believe. So, I think Hayden Haas has a chance to come back next year at center. Yeah, they'll be older on the offensive line and more experienced next year for sure.
All right. Well, we hope that is the case. Now, Jeff, this is some scuttlebutt I heard, and I want to know if you have heard this because I sure hope it's not true, but I don't know why people are out here talking about it. And I'm not criticizing the athletic department when I bring this up, but I understand that the football team at least, a lot of times gets wrapped up with their duties around 6:30 in the evening. And I understand from multiple sources that the mess hall closes at 7. So these players have very little time to get food, and they're having to get, in a lot of cases, food ordered in from off campus, of which should not be something they have to do. It should be a bonus if they want to do that. Have you heard anything about limited food options for the football team?
I have not, although not this year, although I've heard that before. So I cannot speak to how true that is or what kind of role that might play. I know in talking to Brent Thompson the other day that he feels like the season has limited the COVID-19, and the way the schedule has unfolded with all these games in a short period of time, dating to last fall, has limited their time in the weight room, and they are not as strong as they might be uh, on an individual place basis among the players because they have not had their regular schedule in the weight room over the last year or so. And I think he thinks that's a factor in what's happening this season, that they haven't had their regular weight room schedule, so they are not quite as strong as they could be or normally are at this point or in a season, if
Yeah,
that makes any sense.
it does. And again, I heard this from this whole food thing from a couple of different players. It's hard to have a good football team if they're not getting fed and fed correctly. I know at most colleges, your SEC, ACC schools, they've got culinary chefs in there cooking up all kind of fancy stuff for them. They got all these unlimited things they can have for them, and that goes for all of the different sports. And I just hope that's not the case. And again, this is not necessarily an athletic thing. To me, it seems like it might be more of an administrative thing to try to save money, if true. Again,
Well,
not necessarily saying this is a fact here, but I know back when I was there, the athletic mess essentially they had the same food that the regular corps did, but they had a lot more of it, and it made sense. They had to have it to keep themselves energized.
right, and that's always been an issue at the Citadel, keeping on weight on some of these guys during the season. I remember when they had a separate dining room
Hmm.
for the athletes upstairs. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's where
And
I'm talking about. Did they not have that
yeah,
anymore?
no, they eat in the regular mess hall, as far as I know.
Okay.
That changed a few years ago. But that the quality of food in the mess hall compared with training tables at other schools, the availability of the food, as you mentioned, that's always been an issue at the Citadel. I don't know if it's gotten worse this year or in recent years or not.
All right. Well, that was just one of many things being discussed. As I guess when you're getting your you know what handed to you, you got to find other things to be talking about, as the case was in the Sanford loss. So, as you said, this week Wofford comes in. Wofford still has not won a single game in the Southern Conference, and I know they've got a lot of problems there. I got a link sent to me the other day. Somebody had actually hijacked Coach Conklin's Wikipedia page and had put on there that he's the worst coach in college football history. I don't know if the editors at Wikipedia have fixed that by now, but evidently the folks in Spartanburg not exactly happy with the demise of that program.
No, they're a long way from the legendary Mike Ayers years, and of course he retired a few years ago. Their offensive coordinator of many years, Wade Lang, retired before this season, and I think Coach Josh Conklin wanted to evolve, if that's the right word, the option offense.
Hmm.
But it's been a very difficult transition, and Wofford has they've had many of the same problems as the Citadel with COVID and with some injuries. They brought in some transfers this year, which they don't normally do at Wofford, but it hasn't seemed to make a difference. They have played some close games and scored some points this year, so I don't think the Citadel fans should expect a walkover on Saturday. They're probably just as hungry for a win as the Bulldogs, if not
Yes.
hungrier.
This again is
So
homecoming part 2. The classes that end in a 1 and a 6 will be celebrating their homecoming and their anniversaries here this weekend. So great job on that. And it's the final home game at Johnson Haygood Stadium.
that's correct. And maybe what the basketball team will fire up the football guys a little bit and say, hey, if they can beat an ACC team, we can certainly beat a struggling Wofford team.
That's right.
So,
then the Bulldogs after this one go up to Chattanooga for the finale against the Mocs. Anything else football we need to get from you, Jeff Hartsell?
I don't think so. In the SoCon, there's 3 teams tied atop the league right now with 1 loss each: Mercer, Chattanooga, and ETSU. So I think those 3 teams are battling for what I expect to be 2 playoff spots. Of course, the automatic qualifier, and then I think the SoCon will get 1 at-large bid. So those 3 teams battling for 2 spots, I believe.
Yes, and VMI is sitting over there in the wings hoping that one of these teams or a couple teams lose at least one more where they could somehow find themselves back as a SoCon title holder.
That loss to the Citadel is really hurting VMI right now. That came out of nowhere a little bit, and VMI's played well since then, but dropped a close one to ETSU last weekend. So that second loss to the Citadel really hurting their chances right now.
Great. Jeff, anything else? Again, Jeff _ from the PC is where you can find his writing at the Post and Courier, postandcourier.com. Anything else athletics before we welcome in from the class of 1967, Jay Keenan?
John, I think we've covered about everything. Looking forward to this season with some renewed optimism to this basketball season now.
We're excited about that. Jeff, we're going to let you cut out of here because we got Jay coming in here, and we're going to talk all kinds of special salutes to the class of 67. Again, go to Jeff's Twitter page, follow him, and it's Citadel Sports on Post and Courier. You can find him on Facebook there. Jeff, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your week.
John, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff Hartsell. And again, stay tuned. We've got, again, from the class of 1967, Jay Keenan. He is up right after this message.
Hi, I'm Allie. At age 2, my parents knew that there was something different about me. They were told that my life would not be typical. But Autism Society of America was there to help through all of my journeys. Help make a difference and make a donation. Go to autismsociety.org.
And we're back here on Citadel Gray Line from CRM Sports. And we've kind of covered big time all of the athletic happenings thanks to Jeff Hartsell, Charleston Post and Courier. More importantly than the athletic world here this week, we honor our great veterans. And at the Citadel, we've had so many serve, so many die. And almost 5 years ago, it was announced that there would be a war memorial built on the Citadel campus, and it was put there with the effort of the class of 1967. And this week, as we honor Armistice Day and the incredible sacrifice that so many Americans have given our country throughout the year, we thought we would take time to remember this great memorial that's been erected on campus. And to do that, we welcome in from the class of 1967, Jay Keenan. He's joining us from a special spot here on the Citadel Gray Line, and that special spot shouldn't be too hard to figure out once you get to hear Jay's great voice. Jay, welcome into Citadel Gray Line. Thank you very much. Now, let me hear that voice.
Well, thank you, John. It's a pleasure to represent my class and the and the War Memorial. It was a labor of love for all of us to put this thing together and give something back to the college and to all the alumni. So,
yes, sir. And I do believe I can detect a little bit of a Charleston accent you got there.
well, as I mentioned to you when we talked the other day, people asked me if I'm from Charleston, and I said, of course. And they said, well, how long have you lived there? And I said, well, so far, all my life.
But your life's not over with, so you could still end up moving to Manhattan.
There's very little chance of that happening.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about the War Memorial right now. Then we're going to come back and talk to Jay a little bit about his own Citadel experience and more. But Jay, with the class of 67, you weren't alone. Y'all had some great members of your class step up for your 50th class reunion. How did this come about?
John, what happened, I guess about 6 years before our 50th was coming up, and I've always been the reunion chairman and raised all the money for the school and been the class agent and so forth. But Mike Steele came to me. Mike at that point was chairman of the Board of Visitors and recently retired from the Army. He's a lieutenant general, 3 stars. And so he said, Jay, we need to do something special for the college and give something back to the college. I said, 100% agree. And he said, I think the idea of a war memorial would be a good idea. And well, we started talking about it, and the more we talked about it, the more excited we got. We pulled together about 6 of our classmates who have been good contributors in the past to the college, and so we came upon this idea of a war memorial and wanted to memorialize our classmates during the class from the class of 1967, as well as all Citadel alumni. And as we were meeting, we met several times over the course of the months with about 6 or 7 guys in our class that all sort of live in the North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia area. And we wanted to have something that would recognize all alumni. We talked about having a list of all the names of the Citadel graduates who had been killed in action, and we expanded it to Citadel alumni. And at one meeting, I recall, we were talking about what is a Citadel alumni. Looking it up in the dictionary, Webster's dictionary, alumnus is a person who is matriculated at a school. Matriculated means been there, been admitted, and has been there. It doesn't say a length of time. So we took it to mean that if you had enrolled in the Citadel and you were in the class, or if you were at the Citadel for at least a day and left college under honorable circumstances, then you are a Citadel alumni in terms of who would be on the wall. So that really opened up a huge line of folks, particularly when you think about those boys in the class of 42 that were shipped over there. They shipped the whole class over there before they got to their senior year.
Yes, sir.
And all those folks that had joined or had gone to the Citadel for a short period of time left after, let's say, a year. Maybe they had financial problems or couldn't continue their education there. Those guys are alumni, guys and ladies are alumni. So then it became a search of how do we find all the alumni that were killed in action. And of course, there are various places on campus where there are other memorials to Civil War memorials, World War I, World War II, so forth. So all of those names were pulled together, and then we enlisted, of course, the college's help in this thing, and they put us in touch with Steve Smith, who is a historian, and he began to research the names of everybody to go on that wall. An unbelievable amount of time that Major Smith did to research all of this through the Department of Army records and, veterans of foreign. It's unbelievable what the amount of research that we did, and we found 759 names, starting back from when the Citadel was founded in 1842, right straight on through to where we were, and as recently as when we did the wall, it was on 9/11. There was one alumnus killed in the Pentagon in the 9/11 attacks, who had been in school for a year, dropped out for whatever reason. Doesn't make any difference, but he was honorably, he wasn't dishonorably discharged, if you will, and had finished Clemson, had gone in the service, and he was on active duty in the Navy when he was killed in 9/11 in the attacks on the Pentagon. So all of those names are included on that wall, and we came up with a design that we wanted to have, presented it to the Citadel Architect. We have an architect on staff at the campus now. People don't realize that. And John came up with this design of the memorial that we have. We ran it by John Rosa, who was the president then, and he took it to the board, and it was approved. And he suggested where we to put it, which is between Mark Clark Hall and the chapel, in front of the grave of General Mark Clark. So the whole thing came together. We raised all of the money our class raised all of the money to buy it and build it, and set up a small endowment to maintain it, and unfortunately to be able to add names to it in the future.
Yes, sir.
One of our classmates, John Worley, wrote a magnificent short history, if you will, of the college, which is inscribed on the interior walls of the memorial, and went right on through from the beginning to the end. And unfortunately, John, we've left room on that war memorial for future names and future generations, and conflicts with the United States that are Citadel alumni.
Yes, sir.
Most recently, a young man was killed in Afghanistan who had been in school with us. I don't recall his name. Had been to the Citadel for several years, and was from Somerville, actually. And we've added his name to the wall.
Yes, sir.
So
well, if y'all haven't seen the memorial on the Citadel campus, we're going to go back now to 2017 when it was dedicated, and it was a solemn occasion when the class of '67 came in for their 50th reunion, and what a amazing thing that was put on the Citadel campus. It took about a year to build, but we're going to go back thanks to WCSC Live 5 News in Charleston. They did a great report when it was dedicated, and we're going to go back in the archives a couple of years ago to the dedication, and this will give you a little bit of a close-up view of exactly what Jay's talking about here with the class of 1967's War Memorial on the Citadel campus.
The Citadel's graduating class of 1967 will always have a special history.
It was a Vietnam War era class, and we lost 10 of our classmates in that war.
And today, the class of '67 honors those 10 classmates, along with more than 700 other graduates from the Citadel who have died defending our country. They do that with a new memorial.
This is our 50th reunion. We've spent 50 years trying to honor their presence, and in trying to figure out something that would be beneficial to the college for our 50th reunion gift.
President of the Citadel, John Rosa, says they certainly accomplished that.
We've all got friends and classmates and comrades on that wall someplace, and to have a tribute finally after all these years to them is really, really a special day for us.
These are just a few of the names that are written on the new memorial. Some people came today to honor friends who they know whose names are written on the walls, but others honored fallen family.
He was killed as a result of injuries that occurred in Ramadi, February the 21st, 2006.
Lula Lamb Fitzgerald is talking about her stepson.
His name is one of the names that are up there, yes.
Seeing his name on that wall brought Lamb Fitzgerald a mix of emotions.
Humbled, blessed, honored,
Friends or family members?
Thrilled, sad in a way.
But one feeling stands out above the rest.
Most definitely, I'm proud of them.
At the Citadel, I'm Brad Stryker, Live 5 News.
The president of the Citadel says the memorial was put up quickly because how committed the alumni were to making it happen.
All right, again, thanks to Live 5 News in Charleston for that incredible report. And again, what a job by the class of 1967. Jay, we saw in that report there, Miss Fitzgerald came to Charleston to see this thing unveiled. And just to kind of bring a personal connection to all of us here, her stepson was Almar Fitzgerald. Almar Fitzgerald, who was a member of the class of 2004, was from my hometown, Lexington, South Carolina, and he was killed fighting in Iraq back in 2006. But there's a face of the hundreds of names up there on the wall. Right there is a face of a Citadel alumnus that you have memorialized on that incredible piece of, you could call it art, but just incredible piece of work that's on the Citadel campus. And Lieutenant Fitzgerald's memory lives on forever thanks to the hard work of the class of 1967. Wow. And Jay, I know you've got plenty of your own classmates from the class of 1967 whose names are up on that wall.
Well, as Mike Steele said in that video, we lost 11 of our guys. You know, and you recall this was 50 years ago, before cell phones and immediate contact with the whole rest of the world. I was in the service and didn't realize, I was in the Army, and I didn't realize that we had lost guys over there. So we didn't have that realization until several years after we found out that, you know, in fact, we had one of our classmates, Glenn Cook, was missing in action, and it was, I think he was in a plane crash. So he was missing in action, and we didn't know anything about him for 7 or 8 years until they found his remains over there, till after that whole conflict was over. But we didn't know anything was going on. I mean, we knew things were happening there. In fact, while we were in school, the regimental commander before evening mess would announce the name. This is while we were sophomores, juniors, seniors. Would announce the name of another person killed in Vietnam. Our class, as Mike said in that video, lost 10 guys, and again, we just didn't know it. But we heard names while we were in school of guys who had been killed that, as we were freshmen, we didn't recognize the importance or anything about it. As all knobs, we were just trying to make sure we got something to eat. And sophomores, began to take a little more of a interest in what was being said. In juniors, then that meant that guys that had graduated 2 years ahead of us had been killed. And when we were seniors, and the regimental commander would announce a name, it brought it home real quickly, because those guys we knew. They had been in our company. They had played football with us. They had we'd gone out and partied with them on the weekends and so forth, and they were gone. My squad leader, Johnny Fuller, my platoon leader when I was a freshman, was killed over there. He'd graduated, and so while I was in school, he was killed in Vietnam.
Gosh.
And so all of that just really made this so much more special. It's something we had to do to memorialize our friends as well as the rest of those guys. And so there's a committee that's still an ad hoc committee at the school. I'm a member of it representing our class. And there's 7 people on the administration and so forth that vet a name. There are 11 criteria, pretty much the same criteria to be on our wall that you have to be on the Vietnam Memorial Wall, with the addition of the fact it has to be a Citadel alumni. So and it's you're killed in action. A person is killed in action, or injured or contracted a disease while on active duty or in action. So it's just because you're in the service and died, that doesn't qualify you.
Yes, sir. And a name, I don't even know if it's up there, but it probably should be considered, is the guy that was the regimental commander when I was a knob, class of 1990. Remember Clay Ludlam? He was at the Twin Towers.
He's on the wall.
Oh, is he? Okay.
I've seen his name.
Yeah, he only recently died in the last few years, but he got, I think, cancer as a result of rescuing people from the Twin Towers. So that's just an example of the incredible work that your ad hoc committee is doing. Jay Keenan, our special guest here on Citadel Gray Line. Please, if you haven't, take time when you're on the Citadel campus and go by and see this war memorial. It truly is one of the best things that have been added on the Citadel campus in a long, long time, and it will be there for a long, long time to help salute these great heroes from the Mexican War to the war between the states, all the way through the two World War wars, Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, and subsequent wars. Citadel alumni will be honored thanks to the hard work of the class of 1967. I want to say a very special thank you to General Sams, who put you and I together. And you've got such a distinguished list of 1967 members.
Thank you, sir. John is a fine man, and we're blessed to have great leaders that were in our class.
Yes, you do. All right, let's talk about what you've been doing beyond your time at the Citadel and what you did as a career, and you're still busy. What exactly? We put this up earlier. I'll put it up again here for you, Jay. You are, again, in the Charleston area, and you're with Palmetto Commercial Properties. What exactly is that?
That was a commercial real estate firm that my partner and I started, I guess 40 years ago, and my son now owns that company, he and some other guys, and it's still an active commercial real estate company in town. And I'm supposed to be retired. My wife says I've flunked, and because I've got a meeting I've got to go to here in about 30 minutes.
Yes, sir.
We're doing another little project in town, so I guess I have flunked.
What are your greatest hits of things maybe in the Low Country that you've kind of touched through the years?
Well, obviously proudest most of the War Memorial, but we were developers, and we built some hotels in town that have gotten some accolades. The French Quarter Inn is downtown. Harborview Inn is downtown. Spectator Inn downtown. Some hotels, some office buildings, retail, and so forth. But most of our work has been done on the peninsula in the downtown area, and we still own and operate those hotels. I'm helping my son. He's working with a hotel. We're developing a hotel together in Georgetown, South Carolina, down on Front Street on the water. Georgetown is going to be a happening place in the future. So I guess I've passed those genes on to my little boy. So,
what's your son's name?
He's Joe Keenan. He's not a little boy anymore. He's 50 years old. So.
All right. Well, sounds like a great business there. And I'll tell you, with all the historic relevance of Charleston and more, and all the, I'm sure, laws that you've got to follow, it can't be easy building something in downtown Charleston.
No, you have to start with the premise that nobody wants it to be built. And so you have to convince everybody that it's a good idea. And, we've been through the wars as far as getting development work done in the city and in Georgetown at this point. So, but that's the way it should be. We've got to protect this beautiful city that we live in. And some would say that we're overdeveloped now. Time will tell, but it's a great place to live. It's still a great place to live. And when I asked my wife some 4 years ago to marry me, and
did she say yes first of all?
No, and I said, I want to marry you, but please, we're gonna live in Charleston. And she said, well, I like Charleston just fine. So that was that was how she accepted.
Of course, you've the Charleston native that you are and have worked in Charleston all these years, and a place called the Citadel right there in Charleston. As you look back as a member of the class of 1967, as we wrap up with you, what does it mean to be a Citadel alumnus?
Well, to wear this ring in Charleston is it gives you a leg up. It gives you recognition, and it makes me more and more proud all the time. The wonderful work we're doing at the college. I think our leadership is great. I think we're doing the right thing over there. It's a different school than when I went there. When you and I went there, John, you were a little behind me, but it's a different school now. But life is different in many, many ways all over the world now than it was 50 years ago. But the changes we've made, I think, have been for the benefit of the college. We're producing alumni now that are excellent people, and I've gotten to know some of them over the years because I still work with the college through the foundation. And meeting some of these young folks now, it's just they're stunning people. They really are. They're a credit to us, our school, and to America. We're building principled leaders. That's what it's all about.
That's great to hear. And again, the Citadel's kind of been doing that principled leader building at least since 1967, because that's when you escaped there. And I know you've got some great classmates also from the class of 1967. Jay, we know you got a lot of stuff going on. I can't thank you enough for coming on, talking about the War Memorial. And please, again, if y'all haven't taken several minutes, it's not something you can just walk up, take a quick picture, and leave. You've got to really soak it all in and touch it. And this is truly one of the must-sees when you're on the Citadel campus, the 1967 War Memorial, what the class put up there right between the chapel and Mark Clark Hall. Thank you again for your great work and all of your classmates, and best of luck with everything.
Thanks, John. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs. And everybody, thank you for being a part of this show. Thanks to Jeff Hartsell. Great win again by that basketball team. Hopefully they'll keep the wins a-coming and be big dance bound come March. Until we get back together next week, everybody have a great week. You've been listening to Citadel Grayline.